So let's say that you're in space and your pod crashes onto a random planet. What are you doing? Well, for these guys, it's immediately killing and purging wherever they are of all life. Some use guns, some use swords, and some just straight up love fisting guys to death. But during the action, there might just be a risk of rain.
Brother, this guy stinks!
Risk of Rain 2, though, is like one of those games for me that I knew I'd like to play, but just never ended up getting around to buying for no particular reason. And after a couple of friends convinced me to get the game at the beginning of this year, like, I've loved it so much so that I think I put about 50 hours into like the first 2 to 3 months I got it. And the base game of Risk of Rain 2 is, fantastic enough as is and could be genuinely enjoyed for hundreds of hours, but no, I had to change things. Personally, I see mods as a solution for 2 problems you could have with the game. The first one being that there are just some issues in the game you want fixed or just don't like how things look. And the second solution is wanting more content out of a game you already love. And luckily enough, mods are easy enough to install that even a coked up, clinically brain dead Neanderthalithic vegetable such as myself can do it. Literally just download a program, press a couple buttons, and you're good to go. That's really the best part though, is that there's no messing with folders or directly touching game files, so if at any point you want, you can go back to vanilla, but I don't know if you'll want to anymore. I started with some basic quality of life changes since I didn't really have a desire to add a whole lot, as I still hadn't seen everything in the base game and just wanted a few issues I had fixed. One mod that I love is Looking Glass, which gives you the stats for all the items and even yourself. Now, I don't really min-max my builds all the time, but it's super nice being able to see exactly what something does instead of trying to basically mathematically prove quantum theory when getting new items. Actually Faster is another mod I don't think I can play without anymore. All it does is just make interactables go faster, so things like printers and scrappers do their jobs way quicker, which just makes things run way smoother. And a good one is Wolflow Quality of Life, which just adds a bunch of small features like unique ping icons and some informational chat messages, among various other little bits of info that just makes things much nicer. Stage Aesthetic was one I actually found pretty recently, and one that I also think is pretty essential. It's really not doing too much that's pretty crazy, but what it does is it gives all the maps different visual variations, making things look brand new despite being literally the exact same stage. And photo mode was another good one that just lets you freeze the game and take some cinematic shots, and with the amount of shit going on in this game, it's not hard to find something good. A couple of the small ones are a mod that just lets you restart runs, which I feel like most other roguelike games have. Another simple one is Health Bar Immune, which just makes your health bar yellow with the text immune, and it really doesn't do anything outside of that, but there are certain abilities or item effects that makes you invincible, and immediately being able to tell when you are is just very nice. And a mod that keeps the teleporter icon shown once you find it instead of just disappearing, and there's also an ungodly amount of small fixes for things like sound issues and spawns, and I don't exactly always agree with the saying, but if there's something you could think of, there's probably a mod for it. If you've liked this video and have seen any of my other stuff, please subscribe as it's probably the best way to support me, and make sure to like and comment, and I do read all the comments, I very much enjoy it, but with that, back to the video. If you're somehow dissatisfied with how much the game already has, why not just add more? I think the base game has some good stuff, but if you want to spice things up a bit here and there are things like cosmetic mods to help change that. The Lost Through Time skin pack is a great choice since it adds some fantastic skins that I could honestly see as something the devs would add in themselves. And Starstorm 2 is another mod that's honestly probably my favorite and expands upon the game. This mod is kind of like you telling me the devs just dropped a new DLC with tons of content, and I'd 100% believe you because it is literally just that good. The mod includes tons of new things like survivors, items, enemies, and even a new difficulty in the form of Typhoon, which is very hard. I've probably done a good 20 to 30 runs, and not a single one of which have actually beaten the difficulty. I mean, just look at all these modifiers. Like, outside of Eclipse levels, I think this difficulty alone does so much that you actually have to change your approach to the game a bit, since the scaling is off the charts and you earn less XP and money. The best type of mod, though, is the one that adds those new custom characters. Most of these are very incredibly well designed that you could pretty much just throw it straight into the base game and not have things change. Executioner is the first survivor I'll be talking about since he's probably my favorite, and unlike the others I've got as examples, Executioner is not standalone since he's from Starstorm 2, which immediately makes him better. And his main weapon is just a dinky little pistol, but it definitely gets the job done. The rest of his kit, though, revolves around his namesake, getting kills. Your secondary is a cannon you can charge by holding it, but every kill fills a bar instead. It shoots 5 shots like a machine gun and does pretty solid damage. His movement ability is a dash, but what makes it interesting is that it applies the old guillotine effect to any enemy dash by while also stunning them. His last ability, and probably my favorite, is where you launch yourself up and slam back down for an AoE attack with an axe, and most of his cooldowns feed off of each other if you're able to rack up kills fast enough, which makes him super fun. Enforcer is your standard riot officer with the ability to hit protesters with a shield as well as gassing them. And I'm less a fan of his playstyles, it's a bit slower, though he's fun nonetheless. And the aforementioned shield completely nullifies damage from the front, leaving them open to your peaceful countermeasures. Your main weapon is a shotgun, which really serves to limit any chance you had at having range. The smoke grenade does poison enemies and reminds me of a famous type of shower. Rocket is basically taking the soldier from TF2 and somehow giving him more mobility. You can rocket jump, of course, but you also have have remote mines to detonate mid-air, letting you do some insane map traversal. And just like rocket jumping on Soldier, this shit is super fun and very satisfying to do. Plus, you don't actually take any self-damage, which is nice. Paladin, to me, is basically what False Knight wishes he could be. And Paladin mostly plays up close with his sword, but you've also got a ton of different options for abilities to help supplement you. You've got healing, ability nullification, Dark Souls lightning bolt, and a literal star that drains anything of life nearby. And he's a pretty straightforward survivor, but works very well with friends. So maybe outside of Rocket, those mods are pretty normal, and you can see the characters actually being added to the game. But things can get even weirder and further detached from normalcy. Ever wanted to be like Ryan Gosling in that one movie? Well, now you actually can. You can play as Driver. This mod is so fucking cool because it just adds and has so many mechanics in it. And you can get a wide variety of weapons in your playthrough that you can pick up after killing enemies. And they do have a limited magazine, but since you find them so often, it really isn't an issue. And you can also opt to go for bullet enhancements instead, which buff the ever-loving shit out of your shots instead of trading out different guns all the time. And he's definitely a little overpowered, but it's pretty fun being overpowered like this every once in a while. I know I've said there are other cool characters, recreations, and favorites, but Hunk has to probably be the most unique character by far. Literally from the opening, he starts out by jumping out of a helicopter and parachuting down. It's even better because if you don't actually deploy the parachute in time, you just die immediately. And what makes him so interesting is all the cool weapons you can pick up. Unlike Driver, where they're temporary, Hunk gets to keep his weapons. And this is probably my favorite part of him. You have to kill certain enemies to obtain a key card that lets you open caches to get the new weapons, all of which have strict ammo count like you'd see in a Call of Duty game. Also, once you pick up a weapon, you can't drop it, so you really got to think about how to build up your arsenal. The ammo mechanic seems like it'd be out of place in this game considering no one else has it, but it's implemented very well in the game. Probably the coolest part is the actual weapons, and if you scope in, you use your guns, which can hit weak points for more damage, but if you're unscoped, you use your knife, which lets you get in very close. You can also parry attacks, dodge them, and I've even been able to climb onto enemies to repeatedly stab them. There are a couple things I'm missing for this guy, but there are more niche bits about him that I think you should try and find for yourself, because this dude just kicks so much ass, it's unreal. Sonic is a playable character now, though, and basically follows his Frontiers kit for fighting. All in all, despite being a little silly seeing Sonic in the game, the mod is pretty fleshed out and is very enjoyable to play. You actually do have the ability to play as Super Sonic for a short period of time, too. You can also play as Tracer, and it's very accurate to her appearance in Overwatch. And it's funny to me because the kit is genuinely so accurate to Tracer in Overwatch that she's underwhelming in this game because she was not built for it. Despite that, this mod is probably one of the best recreations of any character ported to Risk of Rain. It doesn't stop getting weirder because fucking Ganondorf is here. This is probably one of the funnier character mods I've played because it's straight up mostly his moveset from Smash Bros. You actually do have slightly different move sets for when you do or don't have your swords in hand, if you choose to pick the skill that lets you throw them or just go without them at the start. And Ganon is probably the most broken character I've got because you can get the level of near or immortality very easily and quickly, especially if you grab any items that give you barrier health. It doesn't stop at just characters, oh no. There's an emote mod that basically lets you do whatever dance or emote that you can find and add to the game. You can do some of the TF2 emotes like rock, paper, scissors or the Kazotsuki kick. There's also an ungodly amount of emotes in the badass emotes mod, which adds some interesting things to say the least. At a certain point though, the game starts to get a little repetitive and predictable, so why not go to a darker corner of modding to scratch that itch? And this cheat engine is amazing because it pretty much lets you do whatever you want. One of my favorite things to do with it is take an item, just give myself a metric shit ton of them, and if you want to be more practical with it, you could try and figure out builds, but that's boring. Who wants to do that? Honestly, I'd much rather just throw random shit together and see what happens. You can basically turn on a perma radar so you know where all the objects are, like portals, chests, scrappers. You can spawn in monsters and mess with them by giving them a shit ton of items and modifiers, or just making them brain dead. Any portal you can think of can also be spawned in, basically letting you go wherever you want. Now we've gone through cheats that can destroy your game, emotes that can practically turn your game into Fortnite, wacky characters that probably shouldn't be here, among several other things of course. And there's been one category of mod I've yet to mention, a larger, more sensual genre of mods. One that can be so absurd, they destroy any doubts you had left in your brain that things couldn't get any worse. This where things take a nosedive just straight down through Dante's Inferno, immediately to the 9th circle. What sucks is due to the new updates and lack of support from mod creators, a large portion of these mods actually don't work. Thankfully though, some do, but there's a reason this is the 9th circle of hell. There are some, of course, actual nice looking like female versions of the skins, like some of them are simple and well made, like the Huntress and Captain skins are just nice enough to where they aren't even skirting any lines on NSFW. Then there are those skins. We just had to make everyone fat as shit, not just a normal amount, but inflated to an ungodly level of fat that they look like a balloon ready to pop. I do not understand why these ones continue to be updated and maintained the most. Like, I genuinely cannot show some of these skins on YouTube because they're just showing that much. And why just stop at skins? Let's add some weird as fuck ass items like her burden. Want to know where this item goes on the player? If you guessed inside inside your character, you'd be correct. Or how about the suspicious tentacle? This one instead comes out the front end of the body. Screen shake isn't enough for you? Why not feel the shake yourself with this next mod? Because rumbling shouldn't be relegated to only a controller. And it doesn't get any better the further we go in. Things start looking a little sus, maybe even a little alien. Maybe Overwatch wasn't enough for you. How about you just play the literal TF2 soldier? Yeah, that's right, time to do some awesome fucking rollouts. Still not enough? How about playing as Joe Biden? Maybe even Iron Mouse. How about Gurren Lagann? Yeah, that's right, you can just play as the head and even the full mech. Don't ask me if this is balanced at all. And if my friends want me to play League of Legends with them, then this is the only way I'll do it. What about Dragon Ball? We've got Goku, Vegeta, Z Broly, and Piccolo's green ass. Okay, let's take a quick break. There's been a lot going on with these mods, and I might have gotten a bit carried away with them. I decided to just boot up the game normally and do a plain old vanilla run since I hadn't done one in a minute. And weirdly enough, I feel like I can say that this is kind of comforting in a way. No crazy characters, items, bosses, maps, difficulties, or anything like that here. Just the game I fell in love with. And I don't think I'll stop playing the game with mods in the future though, because they very much have their own merit. And I think from now on though, I'll probably be playing more vanilla Risk of Rain because it's a much more laid back and chill experience, where you don't really have to think about a build as much or dealing with some weird enemies and items and can kind of just go at it. At the end of the day, I would absolutely recommend both this game with and without modding, because while I think the base game is fun enough as is, mods can be that missing piece of the puzzle you're looking for that make the game that much better. And that's kind of all I've got for this one. Honestly, this was a pretty fun video to make, but with that, have a good morning, afternoon, evening, good night, and I hope to see you again real soon.